Udržitelnost je dnes zásadním tématem od politiky po veřejnou debatu na sociálních sítích až po ta nejvyšší biznisová patra. V těch stále častěji sedí lídři, pro které je klíčové, aby jejich strategie vytvářela nejenom finanční hodnotu, ale také hodnotu sociální a environmentální. Jak ale úspěšně vést biznisové týmy, biznisové partnery i celou firmu tak, aby byla schopná dlouhodobě a udržitelně fungovat? I to bude tématem nového dílu podcastu Trendy v udržitelnosti. Jsem Jaroslav Kramer a moje pozvání do dnešního dílu přijala generální ředitelka společnosti Vodafone Česká republika Violeta Luca. Violeta, welcome to the podcast session.
Thank you, Jaroslav. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. The introduction was in Czech and you don't speak Czech. The interview will be in English. But I talked about sustainable leadership. So let's start with the very basic question. What does sustainable leadership mean to you?
In a broad definition, for me, it means creating long-term value for the stakeholders you have in a business by incorporating consideration around environment, societal needs, but also governance when you are driving business strategy and when you are implementing it. So this would be like the broad definition. But if I would go one step deeper, I can reflect what does it mean for me, sustainability and leadership. Sustainability is really about taking decisions and taking actions, having in mind tomorrow. And this is actually how also United Nations is describing what does it mean sustainability. If you are to reflect on what Earth Association is telling, they are actually even more ambitious and more thinking long term. They are saying that you should consider 7 generations ahead of you when you are taking business decisions. But when you are thinking leadership in kind of conjunction with sustainability, it's really about empowering others to create products and services which are supporting communities, which are serving your customers with minimal disruption to the planet, actually.
So basically, it's a very complex topic, but probably easy, maybe hard question. Do you consider yourself as a sustainable leader?
I believe I came over time in a journey and I became better and better. Still room to improve, I would say. So probably in some areas I am, and definitely there are still areas I can become better.
As a leader, I guess you have some kind of vision within the company you are leading and you are the head of. Is it difficult sometimes to find one connection between your vision and sustainable goals, or is it all in sync all the time?
I am fortunate and privileged to work in a company which has sustainability at its heart. So Vodafone, over years, made sustainability pledges and improved the way we operate. And I would say from this perspective, there is a good sync between my principles, my vision, and also the company goals I'm operating in. Of course, over time, you need all the time as a leader to balance short-term financial goals with long-term sustainability goals and to find ways how to mitigate various gaps, various challenges you might have, so you lead forward without compromising on both ends.
So let's be honest a little bit. Is there any area you feel like you would be a better sustainable leader in the future that you would like to work on?
In terms of our sustainability goals, we are complying and, let's say, driving them. In terms of myself being a better sustainable leader, yes, I think as a citizen I can become better in how I use resources and how I consume, because I believe as over time we became very much influenced by this consumerism type of trends, and I was not spared of it, I would say. And I learned in recent years, after I read more and more, to become more aware of how I consume things. And to give a simple example, in the past when I was ordering something, not much I was thinking where it's coming from. Now when I'm in a place, I usually order local things because this is like a small step, a small gesture, but it's actually driving more sustainable practices.
So basically the change starts within us.
Yes,
ourselves.
Yeah, it's very fair.
So you've also talked about sustainable products or bigger and better sustainability within this division. If I say, let's do sustainable business, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
First of all, it means for you as a leader to make it very specific for your own industry, because sustainable practices are not the same between different industries. So it comes down to understanding what is it about. It is about, for instance, how you utilize energy, how you procure energy, for instance, from renewable resources. It's about integrating supply chains. It's about decarbonization. It's about, so you really need to drill down and to understand how is your business affecting the environment, and then define what actions and what goals you need to have in order to minimize that impact. And you need to create definitely a long-term plan. So Vodafone, for instance, we have decarbonization commitments till 2040, but we have also goals which are driving certain milestones delivery. So it's not like you have a goal for, let's say, 20 years, but you don't look on the way what's happening. So you need to define the North Star in terms of sustainability goals, which are specific to your industry, to your company more precisely, and then you need to create an execution plan. It kind of goes to the mundane execution.
So it's, let's say, the new norm for top management to find a topic and create executive plan. It's something that's very special. But for you, did you always find it easy to find a topic and create a plan, or is it something that you are still learning?
Definitely it's not easy. I may share that I think the first seeds of sustainable approach were planted by my grandparents. So they used to have some pieces of land and they were farming. And I remember when I was young, it was around 10 years old, I was asking my grandmother why they are rotating cultures, because they were not cultivating the same thing. And also why they were leaving some pieces of land without being cultivated for some time, a year or two, or in some cases even up to 5 years, depending on the crop. So basically she told me, my dear, because you can't simply exploit the land. You need to, if you want to benefit from it for long years, ourselves and the next generations, we need to take care of it. It was a very simple form in the end of sustainability, but rooted in, I would say, in the common sense, which we should have as humanity, I would say.
As a Vodafone CEO, you meet a lot of other CEOs, a lot of leaders on the Czech market. What would you say is their biggest challenge in implementing sustainability or executing sustainability in these days? Is there a common topic that you are, discussing with almost everyone you meet?
First of all, I see in Czech society and in our circles a genuine kind of interest into driving sustainable practices. And this actually motivated me over the years. And also I got inspiration from various CEOs around me, various people around me. So there is what I call a strong momentum in Czech society and in Europe, in more countries actually, to care for what's coming ahead of us, to care about how we do things, not only about short-term financial goals. So from this perspective, I would say that there is a deep sense of purpose and there is interest, genuine interest. Now, what I noticed recently is rather influenced by, let's say, certain changes in stance towards the Green Deal, which is coming from, let's say, global arena, not from Europe arena, but this is influencing industries, is creating more disruption. There are also a lot of talks if what would happen with our very strict and very ambitious sustainability goals. Will this make us less competitive as Europe versus US and China? So I think these are valid discussions different leaders are having. Either we talk about private or public arena. I think it really requires deep thinking and also maybe even revisiting some of the decisions in the past. I would say that sustainable goals are really long-term. It's a long-term game. So maybe short-term, they would need to make some compromises here and there. But what is very important is to craft a pathway which is really staying true to the long-term goals. But definitely I see maybe more confusion here and there, how we should approach it. My personal belief is that we really maybe need to, instead of feeling overwhelmed of all these kind of influencing forces, rather to think out of the box and to think how we can turn this situation into a positive one for Europe. Because if you think a little bit, years back, we adopted very strict legislation. and in order to support Europe to become really at the forefront of green transformation. And I think that was a great decision. But in parallel, we didn't build the ecosystem to support that. And to give a very simple example, we actually nurtured the growth of China in green technology, because ourselves, we haven't created, for instance, giga power plants to produce batteries. So not only creating legislation and having goals is enough. It's like in any big transformation, you need to create a whole ecosystem. And recently I was reminded by, the Schumpeter destructive creation, it was called. There is a theory which was coined by him, which was telling that if you want to drive economic growth, you need to let creative destruction happen. And let me make a parallel with with China. So in China, for instance, they encourage the EV industry, the electric vehicle industry, by steering a very big competition between companies. So at some point, there were more than 50 players when the demand was at the very beginning. Some of them kind of disappeared in the meantime. You still have like 15 players in this field. So it's not like it's a very protected industry. It's really fueled by very fierce competition. And I think sometimes we forget about this, and I think we need to find our own way as European companies, how we want to drive this. It's really about vision, will, capabilities, and execution.
Are you an optimist that we can find our own way?
Yes, I am optimist by definition. So.
You've also mentioned short-term financial results versus long-term sustainability goals. Is it something that's the balancing of these two areas? Is it something that the business environment in Czech Republic right now is mainly focused on? And first we have to deal with this balance, and then we can focus on creating the new ecosystem that might be also challenging for China and other nations?
There will be always a tension between short-term results and goals you have, and you are responsible actually as a leader, and long-term goals. And for any one of us, probably, we had a moment, at least in our career, where we found difficult to kind of achieve both. My view is that we need to learn how to put an end between goals. So it's not about either or, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. I think in this particular aspect, we are responsible to serve shareholder needs, so deliver financial objectives. And if we want to strive, we really need actually to find a way to deliver also long-term goals. And this requires innovation. This requires discipline in execution. And this requires also partnerships between companies, between suppliers, maybe between countries. So it's really not one-size-fits-all type of solution. But I am a believer that you can find a balance between the two. Yes, it requires hard work. It requires great minds to come together. But also, I believe we are in a time in which we can also use more technology to fuel certain solutions or to bring more productivity in some areas, and then you can reinvest those money into sustainability. So I think we are having challenges, but equally we are having many opportunities we can look into.
Do you believe that in technology segment, in your area, finding our new way in Europe would be a little bit easier than in other areas? Or is it just something that I would assume and it's not reality? Is it easier, more difficult, or same as other areas?
Look, I think I always learn the grass is greener in a different courtyard. So I try to stay away from this and to concentrate, to focus actually on my industry and to see how I find a path forward to deliver, while in the same time also looking laterally, to really look in other industries, to learn from other practices, to look for inspiration, because individually you may not have all the answers. It really requires to work with your teams first, but then to also look around and to learn from others, so to make it easier.
Violeta, I would also like to focus on you as a leader. And this is our, I think, second or third interview. And I've always had a feeling that you are trying to be as much transparent as possible, not within the interview only, but also within the Vodafone. Is it something that's, from your point of view, very important for leaders, sustainable leaders, to be as much transparent as possible, even if it means bringing the bad news sometimes?
Look, I think by design, I grew up like being transparent, and I believe that transparency is the foundation of trust, building trust with your people, with your stakeholders. So for me, it's important, and it really requires also to blend in accountability, because just being transparent without being accountable and creating accountability across your organization is not enough. So yeah, I do that. Sometimes it's not easy, so the outcomes are not always rosy. But I believe this is the right way to approach life and business, so I am doing it.
Is there any good way how to make sure that also your colleagues on lower management levels are as much transparent as you? Is it like leading by example, or is there any chance, any other way how to manage that the transparency goes within the whole company?
I think definitely leading by example with my colleagues in the leadership team helps. Also asking for feedback to see actually how our approach is being depicted by our people, because we may believe that we are transparent and we are clear, but maybe other people don't believe so. So I think there is it's important in the leadership team to agree on the principles you want to lead the company. Then it's important to have feedback loops and to really listen what people say. Maybe sometimes the naked truth won't be that comfortable, so it requires to go out of the comfort zone as a leader and then to understand what you can improve. It really requires as well to talk a lot, to communicate, to over-communicate what is important, whether it's about transparency, it's about sustainability goals, it's about some other goals you may have in the business. So over-communicate, involve people to bring their own stories, and then also create maybe some reference points. I'm calling them, can be KPIs, but sometimes they are simply certain reference points you talk about, so you can show to the people what is the progress, what's moving. And finally, don't forget to celebrate successes and learn from failures. So sometimes we get blinded by all the pressure we have to deliver, and sometimes the goals are long-term. And you forget that you need to bring into the picture also the small progress points. There was a theory which was saying that it's not important always to be number one, but it's important to be the best improver. So to become better today than yesterday, and so on. And in order to have this kind of progress approach, you need to have references. You need to have a clear communication around that. So not easy, but in my view, definitely beneficial for everyone. And it's very hard to reach perfection, let me put it this way.
Violeta, do you feel like the best improver today?
In most days, yes, but not always.
As a business leader, as a CEO, you make decisions that affect not only your team, but also external partners. Mm-hmm. Some principles are quite easy, are business-oriented. But in my mind, sustainable leader tries to also maintain ethical principles. Is this something that resonates with you? Do you have some kind of set of your ethical principles that you would like to achieve within the decision process?
Yes, I do have. So I believe that integrity and inclusivity are the fundamental ones, which I carry in my heart and also in the way I operate. And then I have a principle, which I briefly mentioned, which is around accountability, making sure that we are taking the responsibility for the decisions and actions, and we stay true to them. Because I notice sometimes in my career that people tend to picture the situation in different ways depending on their interest. And this, while I understand why this might happen, I'm not a particular fan of it. So this is why I require clarity around goals, North Star, vision, then communication around how we are doing against those goals, and also taking accountability for the outcomes, because it's very easy to be hero when everything is going great, but maybe not that easy for some people to be heroes when things are maybe suboptimal.
Is it easier for you to maintain your ethical principles within your team or with external partners?
Both. I do not make actually a difference. I truly apply those in all I do, in my personal life, in my professional life. And also I take time to reflect. This came a bit more with wisdom of the age, let me call it this way. So when you are young, you move fast, you have a pace. Maybe you don't take enough time to reflect on how you are doing against your own principles. In recent years, I do take this time. And also I try to soundboard with a couple of trusted people to make sure that I am not deviating or I'm not displaying maybe dissonance in my behavior. So.
Speaking of external partners or external stakeholders, of course, we can talk about different directives from European Union that have a new set of rules. But you, as a leader, are you trying to engage them as much as possible to get them on board with your sustainable goals, or is it something that you count on that they are already on board when they are cooperating with Vodafone?
You mean suppliers or?
We can divide it, external stakeholders, suppliers, and maybe another external parties that you are in collaboration with.
So definitely we work closely with public authorities. So we are offering our support in public consultations. We want to make sure that whatever different bodies are shaping, are coining, we are trying to be part of the sounding board and to offer different data points and to provide our expertise. And this type of open dialogue and continuous dialogue, we believe, is very important in long run, not only on sustainability matters, but generally in legislative matters and public policy. So we do have this practice in Czech Republic, but also across European countries we are operating. When it comes to suppliers, we make sure that we are having a kind of clarity with respect to the expectations we have in the relationship. We have regular check-ins depending on the type of supplier. We have governance in place, so we make sure that we are walking the talk, both ends, and we can also improve where we need to. So I truly believe that in sustainability, like in other matters, it's about creating partnerships in a way, because if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together, like the Arab proverb is saying. So we are applying this approach.
So when you are trying to go as much far as possible with your team, with the workforce that's around you, the key topic is motivation. So let's give us some kind of few tips how to keep your teams most motivated and also most in sync with the sustainable goals.
Absolutely. You really point out a very important aspect of being successful in sustainability, and not only bringing everyone along, actually. I think this is something which we forget sometimes. And let me make a short parenthesis before answering to your question. I participated recently to a panel with respect to European competitiveness. And various panelists had very good points with respect to what we should do, what challenges, what opportunities. And I remember that I kind of chimed in and I said, look, it's very important to bring everyone along, to speak with the society, to make sure that they are really understanding why we are taking these decisions, why it's important maybe to make certain sacrifices here and there, certain concessions. So closing the parenthesis, sometimes as leaders, we may have the tendency under pressure to forget how important it is to bring everyone along with us, and to the very important extent to keep people motivated toward the goals. So I believe that what matters in my view is to be an authentic leader, so to speak about these goals in a manner which is relatable with the colleagues, to find relevant examples, to ask the questions also towards them, to see how they see it, how they can contribute it. Let me give a trivial example, but very, very important. So in Vodafone, people are really kind of genuine and intentional about taking small steps on sustainability practices beyond the company goals. For instance, we don't use as much as possible plastic recipients, for instance. We have electric cars or hybrid cars. We try to minimize waste whenever we are preparing something and we are having an event, trying to find suppliers which are having sustainable practices in how they prepare food and how they manage waste. We organize between ourselves some kind of exchange for clothes, so we can kind of encourage, in a way, circular economy, if you want. On the business side, we launched recently more kind of circular economy practices for the devices to minimize waste and to prolong the lifetime. So these are small things, but, you know, multiplied in many instances, they are creating a real impact. So coming back to the motivation, it's really about making sure that the North Star, how I call it, the vision, it's understood, it's resonating, and then making sure that people are kind of empowering them and inspiring them to find a connection between the North Star and their own work, their daily work. Is it always easy to do so? Not really. So it requires maybe more deeper conversation and finding that connection which people feel it's real. Because if it doesn't feel real, people, they don't really come along.
Violeta, what motivates you personally, especially after, you know, a long day with debates with different government bodies and different legislators and people who are bringing new rules? So what keeps you motivated?
Look, I have a set of things which I'm doing, and this kind of keeps me mostly positive and energetic. I'm saying mostly because I'm not 100% always there. So I have a strong support in my husband. So coming at home, it's a joy and it gives me energy. Then I have either my books, my music, a bit of sports. Sometimes I do Lego, which also gives me good energy and good flow. So I don't kind of drain only, but also fuel energy. But motivation beyond this kind of tips and tricks which are helping me comes a lot from within. And I think whenever I feel more down, because can happen, I think asking myself why kind of I slipped on that path. So understanding what is the trigger is one thing. So understanding my emotions, how I call it. Then moving towards kind of understanding the truth, because sometimes emotions are linked to perception or distortions of reality. So bringing the rational conversation in your head also it helps, how I call it, bringing the truth, and then making the right choices. We even coined a program for our leaders, all the managers actually in the company, with a practice called ETC, Emotions, Truth, Choices. So we are supporting each other to become better managers, better leaders. And this very often goes to ability to manage emotions and realities and making your own choices. So to myself, I think a strong sense of responsibility that I need to do something with my life, to put it very simple. You know, we have, I would say, in the grand scheme of things, a short period we are allocated as a human being, you know, and how we how we utilize every day, every week, I think can make a difference, and it's in our own power. And whenever I feel I'm not kind of staying true to this, making a difference and being useful, then I think I come back to what motivates me and I get back on track.
Violeta, final, very quick question, focusing on the next generation leaders. Do you see in the future more and more sustainable leaders?
As an optimist, yes, I do. As also an optimist realist, I think it's requiring in order to have future generation leaders more sustainable, it requires to make sure that we are kind of adapting education. We are improving the multi-generation work. I truly believe that it's important to have strong internship programs to bring people, young leaders actually, part of your decision bodies, part of your most important initiatives in the company. But fundamentally, yes, I think it's better to look positive and to see how I can contribute to this, yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Yaroslav.